No more war games in this year's Balikatan. But the diplomatic games are just beginning. This is the first year the annual military exercises between the U.S. and the Philippines are under the leadership of new presidents in both nations. And one analyst says the real fear was whether they would happen at all, amid uncertainty in the decades-old alliance.
On the one hand, it shows how enduring the ties are. The fact that you have an exercise that is so important to both sides that even if you have an administration that's coming in and President Duterte himself threatened to cut some of these exercises, the fact that some of his military officials and President Duterte himself eventually realized that this is, something important to keep and that they can actually refocus it instead of canceling it and that has value for the Philippines, I think is important. But on the other hand, I think there's no doubt there was a little bit of uncertainty, and I think there continues to be some uncertainty at the direction of the U.S.-Philippine alliance. I think under President Obama and before President Duterte came to office, a key issue that had underpinned the alliance in terms of cooperation was the South China Sea. And I think you're seeing some silence on this issue as the Philippines tries to recalibrate its relationship with China.
As President Duterte pursues an independent foreign policy of less reliance on the U.S. and closer ties with China, Paramiswaran says Duterte will need to navigate the South China Sea issue carefully, especially when he visits China this week, seeking billions of dollars in infrastructure investment.
I don't know if President Duterte and the current administration knows where it's going to eventually be on the South China Sea. It's a very sort of evolving policy, and previous Philippine leaders, President Aquino, President Arroyo, started off in one place with the Philippines and China, and often they ended up on quite another place because it's, the relationship is not only affected by what the Philippines does, it's also affected by what China does. President Duterte wants to see how far he can go with China in terms of striking some kind of deal or bargain. And to the extent that he can get that deal, he may be willing to downplay the South China Sea dispute and some of these other differences. But if he doesn't get the kind of deal that he wants and China proves to be sort of a tough customer, I think he may be willing to change his position.
A position that could once again favor an important longtime ally. For now, the games go on between the soldiers and their leaders.